Ugh, still here? Someone really needs to call animal control. The words, sharp and cold, sliced through the morning air, spoken by a woman in a perfectly tailored coat, her eyes already scanning her shopping list. She stepped briskly around the small matted heap by the automatic doors of the grocery store, as if avoiding a puddle. But the heap wasn't a puddle. It was a puppy, skeletal, shivering, not barking, not whining. It was standing on its hind legs, front paws pressed together, a posture so impossibly human, so utterly devout, it stole the breath from Arthur's lungs. Arthur, a man of the streets, invisible by choice, had seen every kind of suffering. His own empty stomach often screamed louder than any pain. Yet, the raw, silent desperation in those hollow, prayerful eyes, fixed not on the woman, but directly on him, pierced through his practiced detachment like a shard of ice. Just a stray, he'd heard countless times. But this wasn't just a stray. This was a living, breathing testament to a plea so profound, it resonated with his own forgotten humanity. He saw the sharp jut of ribs beneath matted fur, the trembling of fragile limbs, and felt a sudden, visceral tremor of fury. Not at the woman, but at the world, at the indifference. "What do you want from me, little one?" he thought. The question a hoarse whisper in his mind, echoing the silent, desperate dialogue that had just passed between two forgotten souls. In that single, unwavering gaze, the puppy wasn't asking for food. It was begging for more. It was begging for everything. Arthur, a ghost in the urban landscape, usually preferred the solitude of his existence. His home was a worn-out sleeping bag tucked under a derelict bridge a few blocks away, and his days were a quiet rhythm of seeking warmth, a meager meal, and the solace of unnoticed presence. He carried a dignity that belied his circumstances, a quiet strength born from enduring. He rarely asked for anything, preferring to fade into the background, observing the world with a knowing, weary patience. But the puppy's gaze, a pure, unyielding plea, was different. It spoke of a plight far deeper than its own hunger. It was a desperate, urgent summons that tugged at something deep within his own forgotten humanity. He knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that this little creature was seeking more than just a scrap of food. It was seeking salvation. "Little one," Arthur murmured, his voice hoarse from disuse, Do you want me to follow you?" The puppy's ears twitched, its head tilted slightly, its eyes, deep pools of suffering and intelligence, seemed to understand. It gave a soft, almost imperceptible nod, then turned and took a few hesitant steps, pausing to look back, its front paws once again in that silent, hopeful prayer. Arthur hesitated for a moment, a wave of weariness washing over him. He had so little to give, even for himself. But the puppy's persistent, unwavering gaze was a silent promise of something profound. He sighed, then slowly, carefully, began to follow. The puppy led him away from the bustling street, down a narrow, graffiti-strewn alleyway, its frail body weaving through forgotten debris. The air grew damp and heavy, carrying the scent of discarded waste and damp earth. It stopped at a cluster of overgrown bushes, nudged a broken cardboard box with its nose, and whimpered softly, a tiny, desperate sound. What Arthur saw next shattered his heart into 1,000 pieces. Nestled within the makeshift den, barely breathing, were 3 even tinier, newborn puppies, their eyes still closed, their bodies shivering uncontrollably, almost translucent in their fragility. They were little more than faint heartbeats in fur. The brave little puppy at the grocery store hadn't been begging for itself. It had been begging for its siblings, for its family. A wave of profound, selfless love emanated from the brave little creature, a love so fierce it had driven it to overcome its own starvation and fear. Without a second thought, Arthur abandoned his own hunger and fatigue. He carefully gathered the shivering newborns, placing them gently inside his tattered but surprisingly warm jacket, feeling their minuscule tremors against his chest. He then coaxed the mother puppy into his jacket too, her body trembling with exhaustion and relief, nuzzling against the warmth. His mission became clear, eclipsing every thought of his own comfort. With his meager savings, coins he'd painstakingly collected, he bought the cheapest dog food he could find, mixing it with water to create a soft gruel for the tiny mouths, carefully spoon-feeding the weakest ones. He scavenged for clean rags, meticulously cleaning their matted fur, wiping away the dirt and grime, revealing the faint patterns of their undeveloped coats. He fashioned a better, more secluded den from a discarded appliance box, lining it with dry leaves and his own worn-out shirt for warmth, creating a sanctuary from the biting cold. He spent hours, days, tending to them, his calloused hands surprisingly gentle, his movements precise and deliberate. He gave them the last of his water, enduring his own thirst, his lips cracked, his throat parched. He would sit for long stretches, simply watching them breathe, his face a mixture of profound tenderness and fierce determination. He whispered encouragement, promises of a better life, to the fragile creatures who had, in a single moment, become his entire world. The thought of giving up never crossed his mind. These small lives depended entirely on him, and that dependency ignited a spark within his soul that had long been dormant. Slowly, miraculously, life began to stir within the small family. The little puppies, once almost lifeless, began to whimper for food, their tiny tails wagging feebly as they instinctively sought warmth and sustenance. The brave mother puppy, once so weak, started to regain her strength, her watchful eyes always fixed on Arthur, a deep, unwavering loyalty growing with each passing day. She would sleep curled at his feet, a warm, comforting presence, a loyal shadow wherever he went. Her pups, now growing stronger, their eyes open and curious, would tumble and play around his knees, their joyful barks and playful nips a symphony in his once silent world. Arthur's days were no longer about mere survival. They were filled with purpose, with the warmth of tiny bodies pressed against him, with the unconditional love reflected in 4 pairs of adoring eyes. He taught them to trust, to play, to live. They, in turn, taught him to love again, to hope again, to smile again, filling his lonely existence with an unexpected abundance of joy. He was no longer just Arthur, the homeless man. He was their protector, their provider, their family. This wasn't just an animal rescue. It was a profound act of mutual salvation. The little puppy, standing on its hind legs in a silent prayer, hadn't just found a rescuer. It had found a father, a protector, a family for its babies. And Arthur, the lonely man on the fringes of society, had found not just companionship, but a purpose, a profound reason to live beyond his own hardship. He realized that sometimes the most powerful pleas are not spoken, but shown, and the greatest love is found not in abundance, but in sacrifice. It wasn't for itself that the puppy had begged. It was for them, its family. That was pure love. Love, when given from a pure heart, always finds its way home. Sometimes love walks on 4 legs, and help arrives not with a bark, but with a silent, desperate plea. Sometimes family isn't born, sometimes it's found. And a small plea can heal far more than just the life it saves. It can mend a human heart, too. Thanks for watching. If this story touched your heart, please leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Don't forget to explore our more heartwarming stories.